Have you ever found yourself in that situation, maybe after a birthday or, a holiday, where you're just hoping for a bit of real gratitude from your kids, but instead you get that? Is that it? Or maybe just the classic eye roll.
Oh, definitely. It's something so many parents bump up against.
Yeah. So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that challenge.
hmm
How do we actually foster genuine gratitude in our children when, honestly, it feels like the whole world is kind of pushing them towards entitlement?
It's a big one. And our deep dive today, it's centered around this really insightful parenting book, Raising Grateful Kids in an Entitled World. What's great about this source, I think, is it's not just theory. It pulls together the author's own, really personal family stories, but also research and biblical principles to tackle this entitlement thing head on.
Right. It feels very grounded. And our mission here, yours and mine, is pretty clear. We really want to unpack where this entitlement comes from. Looking at the cultural stuff, sure, but also maybe those habits that we sometimes accidentally start right in our own homes.
And then from there, figure out some practical, maybe even countercultural ways to build up real gratitude and responsibility, not just in the kids, but let's be honest, in ourselves too.
Absolutely. So we'll use some family stories from the book, some surprising facts maybe, just to make it all feel real and hopefully useful for you listening.
Okay.
Okay, let's get into it.
So the book kicks off with this story that was a huge turning point for the author's family. A few years back, they decided, okay, time for the kids. They had 3 to get their first cowboy boots, a big Texas thing.
Right, a rite of passage almost.
Exactly. They even budgeted extra, planned to buy them at the rodeo, thinking they'd get better deals, make a whole day of it.
Sounds like a fun plan. You'd think the kids would be buzzing.
You would think. But apparently, even on the hour-long drive downtown, one of the kids just complained about everything. Who sat where, how hot it was, their sibling breathing too loud. The usual stuff, maybe amplified.
Oh boy.
But the parents pushed through, right? They bought the boots. The family spent a day, looked at animals, ate all that crazy fried rodeo food. But here's the kicker. On the drive home, the same kid started up again. Bad attitude. Complaining they didn't get to do something else at the rodeo.
Yes. After getting the boots and everything.
Yeah. And the author stresses, it wasn't just being tired. It felt like pure ingratitude, complaint after complaint from the back seat. It wasn't just that it was an expensive day, it wasn't appreciated, it wasn't enough. So they took the boots away.
Wow. On the same day.
Same day. In their family, it's actually known as the infamous boots story. The day they generously bought the boots and the day they took them back because of just blatant ingratitude.
That's a statement.
It really was. The author says it wasn't the first time the kids acted unthankful, obviously, but it was a day they consciously, explicitly called out entitlement in their home. They decide, okay, we're waging war against this. We're doubling down on raising grateful kids.
That boot story really crystallizes the problem, doesn't it? So, okay, let's define this term entitlement as it's used today. Traditionally, being entitled meant, having a title or right, usually tied to wealth or nobility.
Right, like Lord somebody's entitled to his lands. But the way we use it now has shifted, hasn't it? It's described more as a human nature thing in the book. Just the feeling or belief that you deserve to be given something, period. Doesn't matter if you earned it.
Just deserving it.
Yeah. And the idea is that our culture has become really focused on this right to have what we want. The book argues that when you face this in your own family, you kind of become your own case study. It makes parenting harder at first, maybe, but the author feels it ultimately makes you better and maybe braver at dealing with it.
That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like our idea of the American dream is sort of shifted too, playing into this. It used to be more about, rags to riches, hard work, providing for your family, maybe being content.
Totally. But now, well, we heard from one listener who put it like this. Bigger, more, newer is better. Everyone must have the newest gadget, cars, and fun at all times. Happiness all the time is the goal.
Wow. Fun all the time. That's a lot of pressure.
It is. There was even this blunt radio definition mentioned. Getting all you can, canning all you can get, sitting on the can so nobody can get what you can.
Oh my goodness. That's cynical, but maybe captures a certain vibe.
Yeah. And what's really striking when you look at the numbers is this financial disconnect. The book points out that median income in the U.S. actually dropped quite a bit after the 2008 recession, but somehow we're paying 15% more for new cars.
So earning less, expecting or wanting more expensive things, that doesn't quite add up.
It really highlights this gap between reality and expectation, doesn't it?
It does. And, okay, it's not just culture out there. The book is pretty clear that parents, Well, we can unintentionally feed into this entitlement.
Yeah, the author is really candid about this. She says, point blank, entitlement didn't start with my kids. It began with me. I entitled them because I was entitled.
That's quite a confession.
It is. She talks about how early on she just wanted her kids to have it all too, but it didn't actually make her feel fulfilled. It actually left her feeling emptier.
And it blurs that line, right, between what kids actually need and what we as parents want for them, maybe for our own reasons.
Exactly. And then there's the fear factor. Parents are often afraid to just say no because, the fallout, the tears, the sighs, the eye rolls, sometimes shouting.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
Right. And our busy lives don't help. We take shortcuts. Convenience becomes king. Relying on the drive-through maybe a bit too much, or handing a phone to a toddler just to get 5 minutes of peace. We've all done it.
Sure. But the book argues that if we're constantly trying to make kids happy all the time, we're kind of setting them up with a false reality.
Yeah, because life isn't like that. Professors won't always accept late work. Bosses won't always make allowances. The bank definitely won't give you a pass on your mortgage. Learning that later is way harder.
Definitely a tougher lesson down the road.
And think about culture's role, too, like the whole selfie society. Okay, maybe a few duck faces aren't the end of the world.
Maybe not.
But the author's point is, if you're constantly framing yourself as the main character in every story, you start seeking validation for how you look rather than, who you are inside. The book warns that, really, endorsing a culture of selfies will bring us nothing good.
It shifts the focus outward. And then there's that related idea, the everyone is special paradox.
Right. Like that cartoon character said, if everyone is special, then actually no one is. The author thinks we do kids a great injustice sometimes by not letting them just be average, by not letting them figure out their unique strengths because they're not amazing at everything.
Finding uniqueness through not being universally special. That's interesting.
And this ties into some research mentioned about Generation Y, or millennials. A professor, Paul Harvey, found this tendency towards unrealistic expectations and a strong resistance toward accepting negative feedback. Plus, maybe an inflated view of oneself. Okay. Which, understandably, leads to frustration when the real world doesn't give you the rewards or respect you feel you deserve based on just showing up, rather than actual effort or skill.
Yeah, I can see that disconnect. The book is an example, right? About a bathroom.
Oh, yeah. The kid supposedly cleaned the bathroom, the mom points out it's still dirty, and the kid calls the mom a perfectionist.
Oof. Okay, so that's the problem laid out pretty clearly.
Yeah.
What about solutions? How do we push back against this tide of entitlement?
Well, a big strategy the book emphasizes is shifting your perspective, getting a more global view. For the author, a trip to Kenya with Compassion International was absolutely pivotal.
Okay, how so?
She describes just seeing her own life, her own assumptions, her entitlement in light of how the rest of the world lived. It was a huge wake-up call.
I can imagine. Seeing real poverty or hardship firsthand has a way of doing that.
Exactly. And what comes out of that is the power of serving others. It's not just about feeling good. It genuinely stirs up gratitude. It gives you and your kids a true snapshot of the world where get what I want when I want it just isn't the reality for most people.
Makes sense. Does the book give practical ways families did this?
Yeah, a couple examples. They did something called Sidewalk Sunday School in inner city Houston, and another time the Refugee Project, where the whole family worked together cleaning this pretty rough apartment for refugee women arriving soon.
Real hands-on stuff.
Totally. They even started doing Rice and Beans Monday pretty regularly. Just a simple meal to intentionally remember how a huge portion of the world eats every day.
There's a simple, consistent reminder.
Yeah. The key takeaway there is really about who we compare ourselves to. Are we always looking up at those who have more? Or do we sometimes look around or even down at those who have less? That shift is crucial for gratitude.
That's powerful. Okay, so shifting perspective globally. What else? The book talks about absolute truth and personal choice. How does that fit in?
Right. This is a foundational piece. The author argues that culturally, the very idea of truth seems to be shifting. Ideas get sort of normalized over time until they're accepted, and if you challenge them, you risk being marginalized.
Like the goalposts are always moving?
Kind of. And she points to Barna research to back this up. Their studies show this really sharp decline, especially among teenagers, in believing in absolute moral truth. Something like 83% of teens surveyed felt moral truth, depends on the situation.
83%? Wow. That's a significant number. It really underscores the challenge for parents trying to instill core values.
It really does.
Mhm.
So, given that landscape, the author strongly argues that parents need to actively teach what she calls a biblical worldview, basically helping kids understand truth and morality through that specific lens, rather than just letting culture or, social media define it for them.
Okay, teach a specific framework. But what about kids questioning things?
That's actually vital. The book stresses letting kids ask the hard questions about faith, about morality. Letting them struggle with their questions is seen as a way they actually become stronger in their beliefs, not weaker.
So don't shut down the doubts.
Exactly. There's an example where the daughter, Madison, asks about her college fund, and the mom jokes, well, it went to Africa, linking it back to their priorities. Or when their son felt uncomfortable with the book assigned in class, and his parents supported him in voicing his conviction respectfully.
Encouraging them to think for themselves within that framework.
Yes. Ultimately, the book suggests the parent's job is to faithfully do our part to explain the truth. But the actual choices, the rest is up to our child, even if that means they learn things the hard way.
That takes some pressure off, in a way. You do your part, but you can't force the outcome.
Right. It frees parents from thinking they have to guarantee their kids make perfect choices.
Okay, so we have global perspective, absolute truth. Now, moving into really practical stuff, the book talks a lot about responsibility and work ethic. There's this family economy idea. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this one really stood out. Basically, the kids had set weekly household chores, 4 specific ones, plus helping with dinner prep or cleanup. And for doing that work consistently, they earned a salary.
Okay, a salary for chores. Interesting. How did that work with, like, buying things?
Well, the system made a clear distinction between needs and wants. Parents covered the needs, right? Basic school shoes, a pair of jeans, haircuts, maybe music lessons. But the wants, things like the latest video game, trendy toys, gadgets that came out of the kids' salary, they had to pay for it themselves.
Okay. So if they wanted something extra, they had to use their own earned money.
Exactly. The author shares this funny story from her own childhood, wanting designer Guess jeans, but her parents bought the cheaper Tropics brand. So she secretly took a Sharpie and tried to make the Tropics label look like Guess.
Resourceful, I guess. So this family economy, it's really about teaching them the value of money and work firsthand.
Totally. It's not just about getting chores done. It's a whole framework for understanding resources. It shifts them from just being consumers to being active contributors who understand trade-offs.
And the benefits seem pretty clear. Teaches money management, obviously. Encourages save. The book mentions the daughter saving up for a specific doll, an American Girl doll, Molly.
Right. And it fosters generosity, too. One of the sons started dreaming about saving enough to sponsor a child himself through an organization.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. And it definitely builds responsibility. One kid apparently lost their earned money somewhere in the house and had to go without it for a whole month until it turned up. Lesson learned,
Ouch. Yeah, that would stick with you. Which ties right into the next point, allowing consequences.
Yes. This is a tough one for parents sometimes. The book gives examples like the daughter Madison forgetting her water jug for marching band practice in the Texas heat, or the son John Avery forgetting a school project was due, or just kids running out of clean socks because they didn't do their laundry.
So what did the parents do? Rush the water jug. Help finish the project.
Nope. They had to consciously step back, let the kid figure it out, let them solve their own problem, the book says, and manage the consequence. Let them feel the heat or face the teacher or wear dirty socks.
That requires parental self-control too, doesn't it? Resisting the urge to rescue them.
Absolutely. Because if we always bail them out, the book warns, we risk raising adolescents. Young adults who are still relying on mom and dad for allowance, help finding a job, basically navigating life.
Yeah, we see that sometimes. It's a real challenge.
And it all comes back to work ethic. There's this great story about a load of sand being dumped in the wrong part of their driveway. Fixing it was a huge, messy job.
Hold up.
But the parents made the kids work together to move it all to the backyard where it belonged. It was hard, they complained. But afterwards, there was this real pride in tackling and finishing a huge task.
Learning they can do hard things together. That's important. What about praise versus encouragement and those participation trophies we hear so much about?
Yeah, the book tackles that too. It argues that constant praise for minimal effort and giving trophies just for showing up can actually be detrimental. It might lead kids to think, to succeed, you just have to show up.
Which doesn't work in college or a job interview.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to replace that kind of generic praise with specific encouragement that acknowledges their effort and links it to the outcome, teaching them that the effort they give is related to the outcome they receive.
Makes sense. Effort matters. Okay, one more point in this section that I found fascinating, the gift of boredom.
Oh yeah, this is counterintuitive today, right? The book strongly argues kids need to be bored sometimes.
Need boredom. Why?
Because it's in those moments when nothing is scheduled and no screen is on that they learn to create their own fun. They have to use their imagination, figure things out, entertain themselves, instead of just needing more stuff to fill their time. That's where creativity can really blossom.
Huh. Letting
Yeah.
them be bored as a way to foster creativity. Like that. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to self-control and boundaries, especially with technology. This is a huge one for parents today.
Huge. And the family in the book had some pretty specific rules, like no phones in bedrooms after 9 p.m. They had to be plugged in downstairs, no phones at the dinner table, ever.
Okay, common ones. What else?
Parents had the final say on social media accounts, who they could friend. Texts could be monitored if there was reason to be concerned. No FaceTime or video chat allowed. No interacting online with strangers. No deleting apps without permission. And the kids had to chip in to pay part of the phone bill.
Wow, that's quite comprehensive and pretty strict compared to maybe what some families do.
It is, and the book throws out this statistic. 87% of teens sleep with their cell phones. 87%.
Get out. That's staggering.
Yeah. A teacher even commented that parents often just use the phone as the kid's alarm clock, but then it's right there, buzzing all night, interrupting sleep.
Right next to their head.
Yeah.
That statistic really is a wake-up call for parents, isn't it?
It is, and it connects to media awareness, too. There was this incident mentioned where a news report briefly showed a clip from that show, Dating Naked.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the kids saw it accidentally. It just highlighted how quickly they can be exposed to inappropriate stuff, even when you're trying to be careful. It underscored the need for parents to be proactive and have those longer conversations about media choices.
You really can't control everything they might see accidentally.
No. And similarly, the author noticed her daughter's attitude getting worse after watching certain shows where kids were subtly disrespectful to parents. So they stopped watching those shows and saw an improvement.
Being mindful of the messages, even subtle ones. It all seems to come back to teaching self-control, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The book puts it starkly. Without self-control, we are absolutely defenseless against sin. It's framed as the key to resisting temptation, to not taking that second look, whether it's online or anywhere else.
Okay. And underpinning all this, the book talks about obedience.
Yeah, obedience as a foundation. The idea is that, in their family structure, obedience is expected, not suggested. That clear authority structure is seen as necessary to prevent recklessness.
So clear expectations and follow-through.
Right. There's a story about their youngest, Emerson, having to go to bed early because of disobedience. It served as a clear reminder that disobedience leads to discipline. But importantly, the author also acknowledges how hard parenting is, that it demands grace in handling their disobedience or failures. It's not about being perfect parents either.
Grace is key. Okay, so moving beyond just rules and consequences, the book spends a good amount of time on building a Christ-centered home. What does that look like, according to the source? It's not just about rules, right?
Definitely not. It clarifies it's not about dead restrictive religious rules or just, ticking the church box once a week.
So what is it about then?
It really starts with us as parents, the book says. It requires intentionality and hard work. It's about consciously inviting Jesus to be part of our lives, not just on Sunday.
Intentionality, okay.
Yeah. It references focus on the family's definition, painting a picture of a home that has joy, order, grace, service, spiritual practices, all rooted in God's purposes, with Christ as the head.
And the parent's role is central here.
Absolutely crucial. The book states pretty plainly that parents say much more to their kids by their lives than by their words.
Actions speak louder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a sobering story about a rebellious teenager whose dad, it turned out, was having an affair. The hypocrisy just undermined everything. It shows how much kids watch and absorb from our behavior.
Wow. That's a tough example. It makes the point. So practically, how do you build that kind of atmosphere?
The book suggests things like parents taking time for their own spiritual preparation, reading the Bible together as a family sometimes, praying about even small worries, having regular family nights, modeling love and forgiveness between spouses, and just creating a safe atmosphere where kids feel okay to learn and, importantly, to mess up without condemnation.
A safe place to fail and learn. And what about community outside the home?
Huge emphasis on that. Connecting with other Christian kids, especially through church, is described as potentially life-saving. It provides positive peer influence, which is so important, especially during teen years.
Having that support network.
Yes. And within the family, there's this idea of choosing relationship over rules, prioritizing grace over legalism,
Yes.
meaning recognizing that just following rules doesn't automatically mean someone has a genuine heart for doing what's right. The relationship, the heart attitude is more important than just checking boxes.
That feels like a key distinction. Grace over legalism.
Yeah. And it all feeds into this bigger picture of countercultural living. The book quotes Pastor Dave Stone, "Society screams me and Jesus screams them." That shift from self-focus to others' focus.
Right. And it mentions David Platt's take on a verse in Luke.
Yeah, Luke 9:23. Platt interprets it as, "Crucify yourself. Put aside all self-preservation in order to live for God's glorification." It's a radical call to live differently from the prevailing culture.
That's definitely countercultural. And not easy.
Not at all. The author's son, John Avery, shared feeling like the odd man out sometimes when he chose not to participate in questionable conversations with his friends. The book affirms, it's not easy standing up when it means standing alone.
It takes courage. Finally, the book touches on apologies and communication.
Yes, really important. Stressing that parents need to apologize when they mess up, and also the importance of really listening to your kids, even when maybe your first instinct is just to demand an apology from them. Sometimes, the book suggests, parents need to just hush and listen.
Hear their side too. That's vital for relationship. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive on raising grateful kids in an entitled world, it feels really clear that, yeah, it's a challenge, a big one, but also incredibly important work, maybe even transformational.
I think so. And the book really drives home that it starts with us, the parents, our own journey towards gratitude, our own intentional choices. That's the foundation.
Yeah, you can't really teach what you don't practice.
Exactly. And maybe one final thought to leave listeners with, drawn from the book. Choosing to lead your family against the cultural current, against that flow of entitlement, it will cost something. Time, effort, maybe popularity sometimes.
It's not the easy path.
No. But the book argues it's a cost that ultimately brings freedom for us and for our kids. So maybe the question for you listening is, what unexpected freedom might you find if you chose to go against the flow in just one small area of your family's life this week?